All right. Sure. So now we know in terms of what we then need to do, right? So what will then be the first thing that we'll then need to determine? Anyone wants to go for it? What will then be the first thing that we then need to determine? Anyone? So the guy was talking about limiting factor. Please open the mic. Let's engage. What will be the first thing that will then determine?
I'd say the number of hours required to fulfill this 51,200 packs.
Okay, so the numbers of which is then correct, right? The first thing will then be the numbers of hours, the roasting hours to fulfill this. And how are we going to do that? We have 51,200 packs, and we know that it equates to 51,200 kg. How are we going to do that? Anyone wants to help? All right. Okay.
It's our aim to get the required hours for the NF beans,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Once you get the 51,200,
yeah,
you divide it by the 80%, which we spoke originally.
So 51,200, we're saying that this is then our output. So when I see the input that we're gonna need, which will then say this 80, so we need the 100. So this divide by 80%. Sure, we'll get 64,000.
Yes, and then
kg. Yeah.
And then I remember when we read there that the raw materials per batch, which is the put in brackets kg, is 100. So we'll divide it by the 100.
So the raw materials per batch is 100.
Yes, to get kg, because I read, because in it they said one pack equals to 1 kg. Per pack equals 1 kg. Maybe I missed it.
Yes, so the one pack equals to kg.
Yes.
So we already have 64,000 kg.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if you're dividing by 100, you are then saying I need to determine what? I need to determine the amount of batches that is there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I agree with you. So let's just unpack that so that others can understand. So we are told here to say, so we have the raw materials per kg. We're told to say raw materials per kg, your raw materials per batch is 100. So what does that mean? It means that if I then have 100 kg of materials, I get one batch. And then now I know that I have 64 kg. I need to know and determine my number of batch, because remember we said batch is the common factor. Then you do your maths, right? 6 times 1, x times 100, divide by 100, and then we'll then get 64 divided by 100, meaning that the 64 kg will then give us 640 batch of 640 sharp. And then
after that, after that, we remember we calculated our per batch, our minutes for roasting time per batch, I mean. So I'll multiply it by the 0.25.
Correct. So we are told that the roasting time per batch is 15 minutes. So, and we already calculated that, right? So we are told that one batch is 15 minutes, we bring it to hours, which is going to be 0.25, right? 0.25, we calculated this. Now I have 64, I need to now get my hours, and then I have X, then I multiply, right? So that it means that my hours, now I get my hours, which will then be 640 multiplied by 0.25, correct?
Okay.
Happiness. So these are my hours that I need to service the agreement, which is 160. Okay. I know I was told to say my additional hours that I can then do with this machine, it's only 100. So now we have a limiting factor here, which is the hours. So the available, which you then need, is 100. So it means we need 60 hours that we're then going to take, from product M. Happiness. So now we've determined that our profitability is going to be affected by two things. It's going to be affected by what we're going to reduce, because we have to reduce the hours or the cost that is equivalent to these hours. And we then add whatever is coming in. So it means that after determining this, what will then be our second step? So what will then be our second step?
Can we calculate the variable cost?
Can you calculate the variable cost of M? Yes, we can.
Okay.
Remember, yeah, we can. So remember, M and this product are identical, right? So the products are the same, so we can. So it means what we're then going to do, we're going to then calculate the two things. So we know that we have to reduce M. And when we reduce M, we need to reduce it by calculating its contribution of M. Then we multiply with the units that we're going to then be reducing. Because remember, now in our budget, we have 200,000 that we are then selling for M. So we need to then get how much are we actually reducing? That is equivalent to that 60 hours, because that is what we're going to then remove from this sale, or remove from this gross margin or gross profit, because we had included it here as a full amount, but we're not going to sell this anymore. And when we do that, we're going to then only then do the contribution, because that is what is then relevant. So my question will then be, so we're going to go to the contribution, but how many volume of M am I not going to sell anymore?
Manda, we're
Yes.
using sales, not production. We're not measuring on production. We're measuring on sales.
So remember, the M that you're going to take out, you are going to sell it. So it means you have to reduce something here. And
No, I don't
again,
understand, but I'm talking about, like, now we're talking about the limiting factor at the
yes,
production level, right?
yes.
So I thought we were gonna use the production measurements, not the sales.
All right, I hear you. How do we? And this is very tricky. It's very tricky, né? And let's do this. Okay, let's wait, and maybe let's approach it this way, so that we can then we're all aligned, and we all understand what the issue is here. So let's leave the units. So we know that we have units that we then need to use when we need to do of M, that we now not going to produce, or we're now not going to sell. So let's leave it. We're going to calculate it. And we know that these units we're going to calculate, or we're going to then multiply it by our contribution. Oh, it's getting late now. Contribution. So I want us to calculate the contribution. How do you calculate the contribution?
Like, are we calculating the lost contribution or in general per unit of the contribution?
Yes, the contribution of M, that will then be the lost contribution. Yeah.
I think since we're not gonna take out all the units from M, but we're reducing it. So the loss contribution is we need to take the limiting hours, which is 100, and then we divide it by the time to produce the units of M. So I think we need to determine the time we need. I don't know. Yeah, we take the 100 hours, then we divide it by the time to produce each unit of M that will be given up. Oh, I think that's what we want. And this will give us the number of products per unit that will be lost and when we give up M.
Okay.
I don't know.
And okay, I wanna follow. Ne? And I think I'm following. So the limiting factor is 60, not 100, right? Because the 100 is the one that is available, and then we have 60, so that's 60, the limiting hours or the hours that we need, right? So you're saying we're gonna now take the 60, and I'm gonna come back here, and then after taking the 60, what are we going to do?
We will now divide by the time to produce the units of M.
Which is?
We had calculated it.
Okay. So to produce one batch?
One batch, yes.
Okay, so we say we're gonna say 60 divided by 0.25. Okay, we get 240.
And then this is, I think this should be the number of products per unit that will be lost when we give up that product of M. I don't know, we times this number by.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if I'm correct.
Okay. No, it's fine. You have an idea. You have an idea. You have an idea there. And maybe let me assist you, right? So maybe let me then assist you. So, and you have an idea. So let me assist you. So we now go. We are back to the units. All right. So we are back to the units, and I'm going to address that issue. So just hold that thought. The lady was asking about the contribution, whether we're dealing with the production or not. So just hold that thought for now. So what we are then going to do, we need to determine the units of M that we are no longer going to then sell. So remember, we're going to sell these units. We're going to sell 200,000. But now, because of the limiting factor, we won't sell again 200,000. We know that we have 60 hours, which is a problem, right? And we know that for us to produce M, we take into account, it takes 15 minutes to then produce one batch, right? So if I then come here and then multiply these two, so if I want then my number of batch, so it takes, yes, so this is one, yeah. So it takes this two. So if I come here and I want my number of batch, right, that I then need, then I can then multiply this and this, this and this. So I can then say 60 divided by the 0.25, and I get 24, which is then the number of batch that I need, right? So these are the number of batch that I need. These are not the number of materials. And remember, so remember, our output here is what is going to come here as kgs, which is 200,000, right? So now I'm saying that I have 60 batch that are equivalent to the 60 hours that is then going to then be there, that I need to then put as an input of materials, right? Or the batch that are there that I need to input. So that's then 60 hours. I know that one batch takes me 15 minutes which is 0.2 hours, then I can calculate the number of batch that I need for those 60 hours, which is 240. So now I have a number of batch. However, I need the material because I know the material that is going to come as an output is the material that is going to come on my sale. So how do I get my material? I know that material per batch is 100, meaning that if I have the number of batch and one material, one batch is 100 materials, then I can then come here and then multiply. And I can then come here and then multiply this by 100, right? Then when I multiply this by 100, I'm going to get the 240 multiplied by 100. Then I'm going to get my units that I need to input for me to get 60 hours. These are the units that I need to input. However, because now I'm determining my sale, and we're going to come to the sale and production thing. My sale, I know that what I'm going to input is not going to then translate to my sale. Not all of it is going to translate to my sale, but only 80% of what I input is going to transfer to my sale. So then it means I need to
Manda, you are muted.
how I've been talking. Where did you lose me? Guys, where did you lose me?
80%. Where you're telling us the output will be 80%.
Oh, okay. Then it means if we have 24 is the input, then the output becomes 80%, meaning this then becomes the number of sale that we will no longer going to then sell from the 200,000 that we are going to sell. Are we clear here?
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
For that 80%, like how did you calculate to get that to that 80%?
Okay. So then the 80%, remember, we were told to say, firstly, whatever we put in, it's what we're going to then sell, right? So no inventories, we're not going to have any closing inventories. So if I then come and then input 1,000 kg, I expect to get 1,000 kg that I'm going to sell because I'm going to sell everything that I put in. However, we're told that then there is going to then be a spillage or evaporation, which will then result in the material shrinking by 20%, meaning that from what I put, I'm going to lose 20% to what I'm going to then get. So that's why we multiply by that 20% here, or by 80% to say 20% has been lost, then we are remaining with 80%.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. Any questions? All good. Oh, that's good. All right. Then this becomes the number of units that we're going to lose. But this we're going to multiply it by our contribution. So how do we calculate our contribution? So and this is where it gets interesting now. How do we then calculate our contribution of M per unit, contribution per unit, to multiply with the units that we have calculated? Anyone wants to go for it? So we start with the sales per unit. So what is our sales per unit for M?
120.
Yes. So the sales per unit for M will then be 120. Okay. Good. So I'm gonna and say now I'm doing my contribution per unit. Then I have my sales per unit. If you can mute yourself, I'm getting a background when I talk. All right. So that's 120 there. And then I'm going to then get my direct raw material. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to start with direct labor as well. All right. So let's start with these two. So contribution, and then we're going to go with the others. So I have my raw materials, I have my labor. So my raw material, what is then my contribution for that per unit?
Can't we take the 540 and we multiply? Wait. It's 540, but we divide it by the 80%.
540.
Sorry, it's late at night. 54 rand. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Sorry,
And what?
50. And then what I've done, I actually divided by 80%.
Why?
Because let me go back to, it's what I just tried now. Isn't it that what I see that they considered the raw material which they gave us now is per unit, they actually considered the shrinkage.
On which one?
On the per kg.
On the 54.
On the 54.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at how you were explaining everything.
Okay.
So it made me to think.
Okay.
So it made me to think that the 54 rand, sorry guys, the 54 rand has considered the 20% shrinkage. And you told us that we need to get our materials on 100%.
Okay.
So that's what made me to say, okay, if I look at this and reread it, I need to divide it. I need to get it to the 100%. I want to know how much is it on 100% value.
Okay. 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 So let me ask you, why are you saying the 54 is 80%?
Let me read here. Okay, so the green coffee beans lose weight during the manufacturing process due to the water evaporation is referred to shrinkage, and the budget. They said here the budget is based on that following assumptions.
Okay.
So I feel like there's a line that I have to hit, and it's not there.
Okay, so yes, we're going to divide it by 0.8, but I'm not really aligned with you with the reasoning to say the 54 it's at 80%, because I will then say the materials required are 250. So this is the input, which is 100, right? We're agreeing, which we're going to lose 20% to get to the 200,000. And then I'm going to say this is the cost of purchasing this full unit, which is then 250, which is at 100. Because if you then take 250 multiplied by 54, we get the cost being 13 million. So I will then say, but you can't then say this is at 80, because this is what you are buying your input, which the input is 100 at. So then this becomes this multiplied by this, and then you get then the 13.5.
To be honest, I was just looking at how you are dealing with the units. I believe what you do on the left, you do on the right. So I was like,
yeah.
Can I come in?
Yeah, come in. So the answer is the answer is we're gonna divide by 0.8. So come in. But I want the reason.
Okay.
I'm losing you. Yeah, come in, try again.
I wanted to know why. Okay, all right. I would also want to know why dividing by 80. Yeah, by 80%, because my understanding of the raw material is this is before production. So this is what you bought from the market in order for you to start the production.
Yes.
So why is it then being converted?
Yes.
Because this is the actual price.
So can I use another method? Sorry.
That's what I'm asking you guys.
May I use another method?
That's what I'm asking you guys. Yeah.
Can we remove the 80%? Leave that 80% alone. Can I use my method, please, sir?
Okay.
What I was going to do, I was going to take the 54 rand and I multiply by the 1.25.
By the 1.25. Where's the 1.25?
Remember, earlier on, I was asking you why I said a 1.25. Remember earlier on, we were talking about my input, how I was going to get the per kg type of thing, which I was a little bit confused. Then I saw my mistake. So first of all, what I did, because the reason while I was analyzing the scenario, I was scared that, hey, maybe when I read along, there'll be variances. And yesterday we spoke about flexible. So I wanted to get to the input. So what I did, I took the 250 of the raw materials, I divided by the 200, which I got the 1.25. And then which made me to say that since this 54 is for per kg, I multiplied it with the 54 to get my 67. That's what I would have done now. Can we please remove the divide by 80%? That was me on in a high mode.
Okay, and anyone wants to come through? Yeah, come through.
So
Actually, like
firstly, I think because the reason why we actually need this 54 amount is that we need to determine the contribution. So the contribution is the sales minus the variable overheads. So the sales are already at 80%. From our side, because we have that 20% sorry about that.
Shrinkage.
We have that 20% that we lost, the wastage. Then now I think because the cost is at 100, it's what costed us to get the material. We should get it to 80% so that we should align it with the sales, and we can determine our contribution. I don't know if that is
okay. So I'm following. How do we get it to the 80%? So you are saying we say this is 100, and then how do we get it to the 80%?
So we should obviously divide it by 80.
Okay.
Then we're gonna get 200.
Yeah.
And then from 100 now we're gonna see how many raw material cost we're not gonna need, because we have this we have these sales that we're not gonna make of 19,000 something. So how much cost is allocated to that 19,000? Then we take that out. I don't know.
Okay. No, I hear you. I need two more people, then I can comment. Yeah.
For me, I have a different one from my classmates.
Yes.
So from this one, they were producing, right? Like we have determined the sales at 80%, meaning that we have already sold something that was produced, right? And for the direct material, when we are issuing it to production, from my understanding, you can't issue something that is already half. You issue something that is full, ne? So I don't think there's a need for us to adjust the costs, because we put the materials as at 100%. The only thing that we have to reduce is the product, like is what we have produced, of what will be the sales that we produced. You see, that is what I understand.
So you're saying we're going to take the 54 as is?
Yes.
Okay. Last one.
We're gonna say remember we're calculating contribution, and we're gonna say sales.
Yeah. Okay.
We're gonna say sales less cost of sales, of which is our cost of raw material.
Okay.
Yes. The total cost of raw material, and raw material is gonna be at 100%.
Okay.
Because it was not like it was still it was still at 100. So we don't have to adjust for 80%, for 20% shrinkage.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying we're gonna take it as is as well?
Yes, because like we don't have to account for, remember it comes at 100%. So like the shrinkage happens at the production level. So now as a raw material, we don't have to account for 20% of shrinkage.
Shrinkage, yeah. Okay, sure. All right. I'm coming in and I hear all of you guys, né? And I think some explanation I hear them. Some explanation, not far apart like that. So let's go back to the basics of contribution, right? So you have this, which is your financial statements, which is your sale and your raw materials, and you have contribution. How do we calculate contribution? Contribution is per unit of what? Like
of sales.
It's per unit of sales, right? So contribution, we are saying this product in terms of what it contributes, right? So when we then get the sales minus variable minus the material, it has to then be at then the selling price or the selling quantity, which is then 200,000. And I'm going to explain the reason behind, which is then the volume of 200,000 that we are then selling, right? Because now, if we then going to then take 24, so let's take 24 and then 24 million and divide it by the 200,000, we're going to get the 120. But then for us to then check the contribution for the raw material, we then need to divide. So we can't then use the input units of what is happening in production, because that is happening in production. Our contribution will then be per unit of our sales, meaning that I'm going to take the 13,000 and I'm going to divide by my 200,000, which are my units that I'm selling. And if you then take that, so if you then come here and then say, you are then taking this and then you divide by the 200,000, you get this as a contribution, which is then 67.5. Because remember, we are then saying this is what is contributing to my contribution of my sales that I'm then having. So it then stated in accordance with then the sale units that we then have. So it means that if we're then buying this at 100%, and then we then going to then lose 20%, right? So I'm then going to then say, if I'm going to then check my contribution here, I'm going to then take that 20% into account in terms of, so I understand this is 100%. So I'm going to then take this and add the normal sale or the normal loss that I was then going to have on the 54 to then get the 67.5. But another way of seeing it is just then taking this amount and then dividing by our sales unit, because we then calculate the contribution per unit of sales. So we never calculate contribution per the number of raw materials that we are putting in. We calculate contribution per unit of sales. So even for labor, if I then come and take 600 and then I divide by the sales amount to get my contribution or to get my direct labor per unit of sales, I'm going to divide by 200 and I'm going to get 3 here come direct labor. But I'm not going to come to direct labor and say I'm dividing it by the 250, in which I'm going to lose the 50 and I'm going to lose it there. So the 50 is no longer there. So it's not even contributing anything because the 50 is no longer there. But then I'm then going to state then the raw materials and my contribution will then be per unit of sales. Alignment, confusions.
So I was saying that for the purposes of calculating our contribution, we are not going to consider that 20%, which is the shrinkage.
So are we not gonna consider it? So by us getting, so by us then having our sales already at 200,000, we sort of like taking it into account, because that is what we are then selling now.
Oh, that's the output. Okay.
Yes, that's the output that we are selling. So it's our sales. Yes. So if our sales was 250, we're gonna get the contribution of our per unit of sale.
Okay. Okay. No, I see it.
Sure. All good. All right. Yes. I can't hear you.
I said, can you hear me? Sorry, I'm talking,
Yes.
but I'm on mute. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I'm just questioning whether it's just a coincidence. Because if you take the 54 rand
laughing and it's on the phone and
per
we can hear
kilo.
them. Yeah.
So I'm saying,
yeah,
I'm not certain if it's just a coincidence, because if you take the 54 rand raw material cost per kilo and you divide it by 80, you also get the 67 rand 50.
Yes. So that's what I say. If you divide it by 80, you still get the 750. But now it's not a coincidence, but you are then saying you're then saying I have this 100%, right? Of my cost. And then in terms of the 20% is going to be absorbed on my sale that I'm going to then have. So I won't then say, so I will then say, if so let's make it this way. So if I'm having a contract and then someone is then saying, you have to then buy these materials for me. And then when you buy these materials for me, how much are you then going to then cost this material? How much are you then going to make me pay for them, right? I'm not going to come here and say I'm going to make you pay 50 Rand 54 for them, because I know that the 20% is going to then be lost here. And I'm not going to say I'm going to multiply this by 80 and then I'm saying 80, because I know that I'm going to be sort of like robbing myself, because now I'm going to charge you my materials at 80. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to then take into account, so I'm going to take this and then divide it by 80 to then get that the shrinkage that I'm then having, and then I'm going to account for that as well.
Oh, good.
Yes, because I'm going to sell. Remember when I'm selling now, I put 250. Now I'm selling 200,000, right? So I was supposed to sell 250. So it means that if I then, so it's actually the same thing. So if I then come and then take the 200,000 and then I come and then divide it, because I want my contribution per unit. So I'm saying that this is the cost of my raw material. My raw material is costing 13,500. But then what is then the contribution of that to the units that I'm selling? So contribution will then be per unit of sale, because that's what I'm selling. So I want to know, to say that in whatever I'm selling, what will then be my contribution of then the raw materials?
Okay.
Sure. So I can then come here and then divide by 250, because this is not what I'm selling. So if I do that and divide by 250, I'm going to get 54. So I'm actually sort of like robbing myself, because yeah, I'm robbing myself because I'm not going to sell 250. I'm going to sell 200. So I then need to know what is then the contribution of the material cost on the 200 that I'm going to then sell. So you then divide by here, and then you'll see that the cost on the 200 that you're going to sell is then the 67. So it took into account that shrinkage that is going to then happen.
100%. Thanks so much.
So we divide contribution, we divide by the unit of sales, because that's what we're going to multiply by at the end of the day. We're going to get our contribution, multiply its contribution per unit of sales, multiplied by the unit of sales. So now we need to make them talk to each other, all of them. And if we then don't do that, it means now we have raw material that we took the contribution per raw material units, not per sales units. So that's the difference. So I'm going to rush here, guys. Time is no longer on our side. So you're going to then do that for raw material. We're going to then do it for labor again. So labor again, you can then come and divide by. You can then come there and divide by 200 to say to then think or to then say what is then my contribution of then this sale that I'm then getting here. All right. Then quality control, relevant, not relevant. Quality control, relevant, not relevant.
The quality control, sir.
Yeah.
It's not relevant.
Okay, I agree. So there was a gentleman who wanted to come in. Did you have another opinion?
No.
Okay, sure. Packaging cost. So packaging cost.
Not relevant.
I think
why?
it's relevant.
Okay, let's hear not relevant first.
You know why I said it's not relevant? Because like it's provided for. The packaging is provided for, not the cost, ne? Okay. Yeah.
So but what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with the ones that we're going to lose. So remember there are two things. Profitability, we say we're going to deal with the additional income that is going to come as a result, which is then the new product. We haven't touched that. We are only now dealing with what we're going to now remove from our product here or from our budgeted product cost here, which is then the
yes, my bad,
yes.
Manda. Let me not waste your time. My bad, I mixed.
Yes. So now, if we are going to then remove those 192, it means that even the cost that we're going to package them for, we won't incur it anymore. So that will then be relevant. Indirect manufacturing overhead, irrelevant, right? Then you have your contribution. Then you multiply your contribution by the other ones. I'm going to go to the solution so that you guys can see the first part. So the first part will then be so here they divided by 80 to get that, right? But you can divide by then the numbers of units for the sale. That is then the simple way of doing it. But this still explains the same thing that we then did. So we have the 160 that we calculated, we have the hours, and then we have the hours that we are 60. We then from the hours that were 60, we determine the sale to say how much are we going to then lose. We determine our contribution, which is the sale. We determine the raw materials, the direct labor. Quality control is irrelevant. You need to show me to say it's irrelevant. You don't put so I can give you a mark. If you just leave them like that, I'm not going to give you a mark. You need to show me. Packaging cost becomes relevant. Indirect manufacturing overheads, irrelevant. You need to still show me that they are there and they are relevant. Then I get my contribution per pack. Then once I get my contribution, I can then multiply this with the packs that I'm selling, which is then the number of sales pack. So if you then come here and take into account the units of 25,000, 250,000 of my input raw material, and you want to multiply that with the units of that I'm selling, we're not comparing apples to apples. Hence, everything must be stated as per sales units. And then we multiply our contribution per the sale with the number of sales pack, which is then calculated. Then we have a lost contribution. So this lost contribution is going to then have an impact on our profit that we have budgeted. That's the first part of things. All good. So we explain this. Then we go to NF bins. So NF bins is the new one now. So we have NF bins. We are then told one, we are going to then get 40 rand per pack, right? So we're told we're going to get 40 rand per pack. We're given an amount here. Where is it? We're given an amount that we're then going to then get. All right. So we're going to get 40 rand per pack, right? So if we then take this 40 rand per pack and then we then multiply it with the numbers of packs that we then going to sell to these guys. You understand that if we multiply the 40 by the 50, we get the sales that we then going to get from these guys for the first year, because we sell them this, and then we're going to get what? We're going to multiply it by 40. You agree? Do you agree, guys? So if we say 40 multiplied by, we get this amount. And we agree that this is the amount that we're then going to get from them, because we're going to sell them 51 packs and it's going to be 40 rand per pack. Do you agree? Come on, guys, agree so that we can go sleep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then we're going to take 51, 200 multiplied by 40. So that will then be the sales. Then we have raw materials for us to produce this. But we were then told to say NF will purchase the raw materials and packaging. So is this relevant? Someone says this won't be relevant because we're not incurring it. Meaning that for the raw material and the packaging now for this one, it's going to be irrelevant. However, for direct labor, because we're told to say that the direct labor, we are the ones who are going to employ more. Now we're going to incur this. So direct labor will then be relevant. Then quality control won't be relevant, right? Again, no extra cost, we were told. And then the additional manufacturing overheads, because they're additional, we're going to incur them as a result of this agreement. This then becomes, we would then include them as our overhead. So what we're going to do, we have the sale that we calculated. This also is affecting our profit. We have the raw material packaging, which then becomes this. We have direct labor, which is going to be relevant because we're going to employ more. We have quality control. This is not going to be relevant. You show me. Higher indirect manufacturing overheads. This, again, we're going to have. And then it means that our overall impact will then be, we add everything here, and then we're then going to then get this as our impact that it's going to have on the GP. Happiness.
Yes. Thank you.
So that then you answer the question. So this other one you can read. So this other one, most of the things we've already touched on them in terms of writing. But you see how we're writing here. We're not writing in paragraphs, right? So I don't want you guys also to write paragraphs, because if you write paragraphs, you just waste your time. But you just need to be precise, right? So NF reputation needs to be taken into account. Is it a reputable and credible company, right? Because this can impact on this FCB image and brand. Done. But I think the important thing that you need to take, breaking down this, because it will then help you answer some of these things here. But yeah, I think then that's all. I will then take questions.
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
The qualitative factors and the key factors, is it the same wording or is different?
So the key factors that needs to be considered, or the qualitative factors that need to be considered, they're the same. The difference can be, so they're the same, but the difference then can be for me on what. So if you're saying discuss key factors and you say discuss any qualitative factors that you should consider when evaluating, for me that's the same thing. But now it has to then be on what am I dealing. So here, so am I dealing with the agreement, right? So one, am I dealing with the agreement as a whole? So I then go and deal with the agreement and think about a lot of things about the agreement, the reputation, everything that has to do with the agreement. So I go and think about everything. That's the first thing. Secondly, am I dealing with the terms are you saying I must consider qualitative factors or consideration on the terms? So these things now are different. So on what? So on the terms, I'm thinking about, I need to discuss my PV, which is the amount that I'm then putting in. I need to discuss the amount that I'm getting in. I need to discuss the years. I need to discuss the interest, if there's any interest that is there. And then I need to discuss if there's any payment, monthly payment that I'm going to get. These are the terms. So you can't be talking about reputation when you're talking about the terms now of the agreement, right? So, and yeah, maybe this is a bad example because here they say the long-term supplier, referring to the agreement in general. But then sometimes they refer to the terms, which are, say you are getting a loan and then from a supplier, and then you have to talk about the terms. Or you can then have qualitative factors on the loan. And then now you can then talk about, okay, did you consider other loans? Did you consider all these other things? But if then we talk about the terms, we then discuss this. Or am I giving additional consideration on the strategy that is then coming through? So if it's on the strategy, I'm not going to talk about reputation of the supplier. I'm going to talk about the strategy itself and how it affects our company going forward, because strategy will then have to affect how we do things. And I talk to that. So for me, key factors and additional factors are the same. For me, that's not a problem. My problem is to say, what am I evaluating on, or what am I considering? That then becomes the important thing, because sometimes they can then trick you there, and then because you just used to key factors and consideration, you then just discuss anything, but without reading the required again and understanding exactly what am I considering these things on. Happy?
Oh, okay. So that means if the key factors and the qualitative factors are the same, does it mean that I don't have to limit my answers when I'm answering to evaluate something?
Yeah, don't limit yourself, because I mean, if they're saying, for example, if they're saying key factors here, we spoke about the reputation, and if I go to the example, and I don't think this will change if we talk about qualitative factors. So we talk about the reputation, they're bringing in materials to us, so, and the packaging, so that also will have an indirect implication to us, right? Because what if they don't package it nicely and people know that it's ours, and then now people say, oh, okay, it means you guys are working together, then it takes us the problem. They talk about the marketing factors as well, the market factor, to say that we are selling at 120 to our customers, but if we then take the 40 that they're paying us, the materials that they're going to then produce themselves, and then the amount of packaging, it's still less than what we're selling. We're selling our products to our customers. So is it worth it? They then talk about, so the NP analysis that I talk about, they talk about the bargaining power, the cash flow impact. What about the contract as well? So yes, you don't have to limit yourself when you then talk about that.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, sir. I understand now.
Sure. All good.
All good, thanks.
All right. If that's then the case, we are done, guys. You guys still have to attend accounting tomorrow, né? Or you're done?
Yes, there's still accounting tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I think you're attending accounting with that. All right, no problem then. I think that's all. And yeah. Yes,
I heard that I will be called for the study material. I just wanted to ask if I'll be called via Teams, or I will have to wait for an email, or must I just write my email on the chat?
Hey Nosipo, please write your email on the chat and one of our caretakers will be in contact with you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, now all the best, guys, with your test. Right in 2 weeks, I think. So yeah, all the best with your test. We'll see each other workshop 3. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.